Hi, my name is Cassie Howe, and I chose the topic victim blaming because I think it's a really important topic that people should know when they come into college. People are less likely to help someone that they do not know. They help people they know because they understand that person. They know that when those individuals need help, and they know when the person is telling the truth about needing help or if they're faking it. They know that person on another level and they know how they can help them to succeed. People are less likely to help strangers because they often do not see them as a victim. They think they deserve what's happened to them because they control their life. For example, if someone is were homeless, people may often think that they are homeless because they did not get a job. People are also less likely to help people that are not like them or in the same cohort. Victim blaming is when the fault is assigned to the person that experienced the violence or wrongdoing. This is to make the person feel like it was their fault and that they deserved what had happened to them. If people believe that someone is not a victim, then they're less likely to help that person. Victim blaming is very common and it can really hurt the individual that has had something very bad happen to them. Victim blaming is more common than when there is a reason to believe that individual deserved it or was asking for it. People want a reason to blame the victim. When people face extreme hardships, they are often blamed for their hardships. This means that whenever someone is going through tough times, people generally try to come up with a reason as to why they're going through the situation. For example, if someone were having a financial problem and cannot afford to pay their bills, someone might say that they're having that problem because they always buy unnecessary items, and that is why they don't have enough money to afford their essentials. This image shows that something that may just be a joke to someone may not be a joke to someone else. Gaslighting is a form of victim blaming. Gaslighting is when people manipulate others into doubting themselves or questioning their sanity. The victim is manipulated to think that the person who committed the act never did it. They will make the victim question whether the event even happened. The term gaslighting comes from a movie in 1994 called Gaslight. In this movie, a husband lies and deceives his wife into believing that she is going insane to cover up his own misdeeds. The concept of someone losing one's mind or going crazy is built into a larger system of a stereotype where women are often labeled as crazy or hysterical. This image shows some examples of phrases that may be victim blaming or gaslighting, saying somebody's overreacting as an example. Sex workers are often affected by victim blaming. People think that if a person was a sex worker, then they asked to be in the situation where they would be raped or have something bad happen to them. They also talk about how their clothing has to do with that. This chart shows that when an individual is seen as low in warmth and low in competence, then they are more likely to be blamed as a victim. Sex workers are in this part of the chart, and that explains why they're often blamed when they are the victim of assault. Just because someone is a sex worker does not mean that they consent to everything that could ever happen to them. They have rights as well, and they can decide what they want to do for work and what they do not want to do. Someone does not have the right to say that they deserve it because they do these things for work. In this image, the woman who wrote this note states that her kids were taken away because she was unable to protect them. She was blamed for something that happened to her children that she thought was out of her control. Sometimes everything is out of the victim's control. Sometimes they cannot fight back. When someone is going through a traumatic time, they often becomes frozen and they cannot do anything. People sometimes think that if the person in a relationship with someone, then they consent to everything that goes into a relationship. This is not the case. If someone is in a relationship, they have the right to say no to something that their partner wants to do. Just because someone consented to something one time does not mean they could consent to it every other time after that. People often victim blame in these situations because they got into the relationship knowing what would happen. People need to be trusting in relationships and they need to be open and ask consent every time. When there is an intimate partner violence, there is often victim blaming that goes on. People think that if someone is being physically or mentally abused, they can just leave that person. And if they choose to stay, then it's their fault they got hurt even more. Being in an intimate relationship with someone who is abusive is hard to get out of. The victim often loves the person who is abusive and they see it as their fault that they are being abused. They come up with excuses as to why their partner did that to them. People who are in these types of relationships need help. They do not need someone to blame them for their actions because they are often blaming themselves too. Victim blaming does not only happen in intimate relationships. It may also happen when someone is being bullied. Blaming the victim was heavily affected by what class the students were in when the bullying occurred. There should be no circumstances where the victim should be blamed for something that had happened to them. They may have been able to fight back, but they also may have had a response where their body could not move or fight back. They could have been frozen in fear. There is also sometimes a bystander effect where no one is helping when they see the person is in trouble because they do not want to get involved or they see it as very harmful event. There are times where people need help and we need to make sure we side with the victim. Thank you.